United States, accompanied by Peace Corps Director Mark Guerin, First Peace Corps Director Sergeant Shriver, Eunice Shriver, and Peace Corps trainee Amanda Jackson.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Have a seat, and welcome to the White House. Mr. President, Ambassador Spier-Gabra, members of Congress, former Peace Corps volunteers, past and present, it's truly a privilege and an honor to be here on the occasion of the 35th anniversary of the Peace Corps to welcome you here to the White House. At the beginning, let me recognize two individuals who have special familiarity with the Peace Corps. Senator Harris Wofford, who now directs the Corporation for National Service, an early architect of the Peace Corps. And of course, Sergeant Shriver, the first director of the Peace Corps. Of course, Mr. Shriver, we welcome you as well. Mr. President, from this very garden, 35 years ago, the 35th president sent a group of young Americans to become the very first Peace Corps volunteers in Ghana. Today, 24 representatives of that original group that were dispersed from this garden 35 years ago have returned to the White House. I'd like to ask them to stand so that we can honor their service. Maybe it wasn't 35 years ago. The Peace Corps has been fortunate during the course of 35 years to have bipartisan support from the Congress. And that's because members of Congress from both sides of the aisle began their public service as Peace Corps volunteers. In the United States Senate, Senator Chris Dodd of Connecticut was a Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic. Senate duties prevent him from being here today, but we thank him for his service. We're honored to be joined today by members of the House of Representatives who also began their public service as Peace Corps volunteers. Representative Tony Hall, who was a Peace Corps volunteer in Thailand in 1966. Representative Tom Petri, who was a volunteer in Somalia in 1966. Representative Christopher Shays, who served with his wife Betsy in Fiji in 1968. Representative Jim Walsh of New York, who was a volunteer in Nepal in 1970. Representative Sam Farr of California was a volunteer in Colombia in 1964. And Representative Mike Ward, who served in the Gambia with his wife Tina in 1970. Mr. President, it's perfect. 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. We welcome you here. We're also grateful for Senator Pell joining us today, a very long time and devoted friend of the Peace Corps, as well as Chairman Gilman and Chairman Callahan, Representative Payne. Administration officials that have been part of the Peace Corps family, obviously Secretary Donna Shalala and her Assistant Secretary Mary Jo Bain were Peace Corps volunteers. The Solicitor General of the United States, Drew Days, was a Peace Corps volunteer, and we honor your service. And the Deputy Secretary of the Interior, John Garamendi, was a Peace Corps volunteer. And we thank you for all your service. All walks of life have Peace Corps volunteers, from Gordon Radley, the president of Lucasfilms, to Elaine Jones with the NAACP, to Chick Dombeck, who coordinates the Peace Corps volunteers, to Bob Vila, who owes all of his success to his early days as a Peace Corps volunteer. And we welcome you here, sir. The Peace Corps has a proud and rich history and a perfect right to celebrate its 35th anniversary. Peace Corps volunteers have worked to eradicate guinea worm disease, to educate thousands of children, to improve agricultural methods, and to really work to provide safe drinking water throughout the developing world. But as proud and rich and strong as our past is, our legacy, our tradition, and our history demands that we keep pace with the times. That's what the Peace Corps has done for 35 years. That's why Dick Celeste in the 1970s made sure that the Peace Corps was an autonomous agency. That's why during the 1980s, Director Lorette Rupe guided the Peace Corps to improve the lot of women in the developing world. And that's why in the 1990s, then Director, now Senator Paul Coverdale, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, opened the way for Peace Corps volunteers to work in the former Soviet Union and throughout Eastern Europe. And that's why today, entrusted with the leadership of this great organization, we're dedicated to keeping the Peace Corps moving in new directions. It's a very exciting time to be at the Peace Corps, thanks to the legacy of 140,000 Americans who've been Peace Corps volunteers. This year, the Peace Corps will send volunteers, Peace Corps volunteers, back into Haiti for the first time in 5 years, and for the first time ever, in the history of the Peace Corps, volunteers will be working in South Africa this year. We're working with other international volunteer groups to see what we can do in concert together in the developing world. And we're launching a new initiative today that the President will speak to respond to humanitarian crises to our neighbors in need that the President will outline later in his remarks. Therefore, today, as we mark the 35th anniversary of Peace Corps volunteers in service to the world, I remind each of you that the history of the Peace Corps is really the history of committed men and women who have made a real difference in the lives of real people. Finally, to our newest group of volunteers who are leaving this very week to go to Ghana, I urge you to cross borders, to cross imagined borders imposed by stereotypes, to cross personal borders of limitation and make the most of yourself, to cross international borders and seek new experiences, new people, new cultures, to learn, to share, and to grow from the crossings. And then with that great wealth of experience that you will gain as a Peace Corps volunteer, to turn to your family, your neighbors, your community, and give something back. Come back to the United States, as these other Peace Corps volunteers have done, and work on the third goal of the Peace Corps, to bring the world back home. For after all, you're here today standing on the shoulders of every volunteer who has served before you. They've laid the groundwork over the course of 35 years for you to cross these borders and to respond to the ever-changing needs as we enter the new millennium. President Clinton, and to the members of Congress that are here today and distinguished guests, the individuals before you are the individuals you support when you support the Peace Corps. These are the individuals who cross borders and will help others to help themselves. They are the legacy of John F. Kennedy's vision, and they will lead the Peace Corps into the next century. And now I'd like to introduce one of those individuals who leaves later this week for Ghana to introduce the President, Mandy Jackson. Mandy.
Thank you. President Clinton, Director Guerin, fellow Ghana trainees, honorable Ghana ones, returned Peace Corps volunteers, and especially my mom, dad, and family who came all the way from Wisconsin today. It is an honor to stand here before you today. Not only is it an honor to be here, but I also feel privileged to be a citizen of the United States. While growing up in the fine public schools of Wisconsin and attending Emory University in Atlanta, I received a great education and had endless extracurricular opportunities. Working at Atlanta's Robert W. Woodruff Foundation this year, I also had a great opportunity. I saw firsthand how people who serve can build buildings, enhance education, empower youth, and create a wonderful environment for people of all ages and from all backgrounds. I'm truly lucky to have had all these opportunities. Unfortunately, many people have not had these same opportunities, and I'm so excited to go into Ghana for 2 years and share my experiences, my perspectives, and education from Wisconsin and Atlanta as a teacher. I suspect I will learn as much as I teach. And upon my return to the States, Director Guerin, I look forward to sharing my Peace Corps experiences with people of our country and also fulfilling my lifetime goal to serve as a doctor with underprivileged children and families. I'm honored to be part of this 35th anniversary for the Peace Corps. We are grateful for those whose support helps keep this organization strong. President Clinton is one of these people. He knows what we as volunteers go through and what we will accomplish. And it gives me a very secure feeling to know that our president understands and appreciates the work that the Peace Corps volunteers do. And now it is with great honor and respect that I present to you the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mandy, where are your family? Stand up there. Just give them a hand. Thank you very much. You did a good job there. Thank you very much. To Sergeant Eunice Shriver, thank you so much for the Peace Corps, for the Special Olympics, for everything you have done for America and for the world. Senator Wofford, thank you for the Peace Corps and for national service and for everything that happened in between. Thank you, Mark Guerin, for proving that there is life after the White House. To all the former volunteers who are here, to the distinguished members of Congress, to Ambassador Spio Gabra, thank you, sir. We're honored by your presence and by our friendship with your country. The Peace Corps for 35 years has shown America at its best. In the summer of 1961, as has been said, there were 80 young Americans standing where these Americans stand today. Wearing their Sunday best, they waited excitedly to meet President Kennedy, and I understand they were chatting occasionally among themselves in Twi, the language they would have to use more frequently as they moved along. More than half of them were preparing to leave for Ghana, about to launch one of the greatest experiments in service to humanity in all human history. They would live as the people of Ghana lived and be active as a part of the communities they served. They were trained to teach, but they were going to learn and to bridge the gaps of development and custom with sturdy bonds of friendship and compassion. On that day, President Kennedy said, "The future of the Peace Corps really rests with you. If you do well, then the Peace Corps will be developed and more Americans will go abroad, and we'll find a greater and greater response to serving our country." The men and women of Ghana One did the President, the Peace Corps, and America proud. I am very grateful to all of you, and I'm glad to have you back in the Rose Garden today, 35 years later. When President Kennedy created the Peace Corps 35 years ago with the extraordinary support of Sergeant Shriver, Harris Wofford, Ted Sorensen, and many others, he tapped an overflowing reservoir of energy and idealism. Thousands of young people answered the call to serve at the vanguard of the new frontier. Among the first was the Vice President's beloved sister, Nancy Gore Hunger. They gave of themselves to help others around the world to become the best they could be, and to bring to them the message by the example of their lives that our nation is a great country standing for great ideals, a country that cares about human progress everywhere in the world. The Peace Corps symbolized everything that inspired my generation to service. It was based on a simple yet powerful idea, that none of us alone will ever be as strong as we can all be if we'll all work together. None of us can reach our fullest potential while others are left behind. Community counts, and every member of our community matters at home and on this increasingly small planet we share. Since 1961, as Mark said, more than 140,000 Americans have served as Peace Corps volunteers. Today, the Peace Corps' towering task is just as vital as ever. I am very grateful for those who serve today, and their mission is just as important today as it was 35 years ago. Even as we meet, the Peace Corps is hard at work in countries few could have imagined going to back in 1961. Indeed, the Peace Corps is hard at work today in countries that did not exist in 1961. It has traced the rising tide of freedom to meet new needs around the globe, from Central America to Central Europe to Central Asia, sharing the skills of private enterprise and nations struggling to build a market economy, empowering women, protecting the environment, and always showing others the path to help themselves. I'm proud to say that in April, after an absence of nearly 5 years, Peace Corps volunteers returned to Haiti to help the Haitian people make the most of their hard-won freedom. Just a couple of days ago, the First Lady and I had the honor to welcome to the White House for a brief visit former President Aristide and his wife. And he talked in glowing terms about the citizenship of the Americans who have come to help Haiti. From those who came in uniform, including 200 Haitian Americans who could speak Creole to the people of Haiti, to the Peace Corps volunteers who labor there today. With the Peace Corps, with the agreement that the Vice President signed last December, as has already been said, our Peace Corps volunteers will go this year to serve in South Africa for the first time. They must be so excited. So many others have gone before them, but they can prove that South Africa can make its dreams and its promise real. I'm also proud to announce the establishment of a crisis corps within the Peace Corps to help the relief community to cope with international emergencies. It will draw on the Peace Corps' recent successful experience in helping people affected by disasters, such as rebuilding homes in Antigua that were destroyed by Hurricane Luis, and helping Rwandan refugees to grow their own food. The dedicated service of Peace Corps volunteers does not end when their 2-year tour is over. Today, returned Peace Corps volunteers, as has been said, are making a difference in our administration, in the cabinet, like Secretary Shalala, or those on Capitol Hills who have already been introduced, and I want to thank them all, Republicans and Democrats alike. I wish we had them up here explaining what the role of their service in the Peace Corps was in animating their future careers in public service. There are many leaders in journalism and business and education, including many who are here today. Thousands of volunteers just serve in their communities today, or offer their time to teach school children about the world in which they live, in which they, the volunteers, were fortunate enough to explore at an earlier time in their lives. Their spirit of service is the spirit of America. In that sense, it's more than 35 years old. It's as old as our country itself. And I can't help but note that not all our 140,000 Peace Corps volunteers have been so young. They just had to be young at heart, young in spirit, young in imagination. And thank you, sir, for making me feel that I might have a future in the Peace Corps. I'm glad to see you. Thank you. We all remember the legendary mother of former President Carter and her wonderful stories of how the Peace Corps changed her life. The Peace Corps is for all Americans who wish to serve. When I became president, we challenged America to rekindle that spirit of service. I thank Senator Wofford for working to support the creation of AmeriCorps in 1993 to give young people a chance to serve their country here at home, and for doing more by running the Corporation for National Service today. Americans now, in addition to the 140,000 who have worked in the Peace Corps, we've had 40,000 young Americans lifting their own lives by giving comfort and support to dealing with problems here in the United States. Last month, when I spoke at Penn State, I asked our people to further spread the ethic of service throughout our nation. I asked America's institutions of higher education to use more of their work-study money to promote community service here at home. and I challenge every community to get our students to answer the call of service. With our help, a year from now, we want service scholars to be honored at every high school graduation in America. We have to take the spirit of the Peace Corps into the lives of every young person in this country. Every citizen needs to know that we give and we get, that we grow by giving and serving. So let us always remember that the truest measure of the Peace Corps' greatness has been more than its impact on development. The real gift of the Peace Corps is the gift of the human heart, pulsing with the spirit of civic responsibility that is the core of America's character. It is forever an antidote to cynicism, a living challenge to intolerance, an enduring promise that the future can be better and that people can live richer lives if we have the faith and strength and compassion and good sense to work together. Thank you all for making that live in our country, and God bless you.